sharing with you in this video how to stay calm in chaos when creating your goals. Because really, what oftentimes can happen is that one can believe that chaos is something that's wrong, something that shouldn't be happening. And so in this video, really what we're going to make very clear is that that perspective is never going to be conducive to creation. It's never going to help you to create what you actually want. So the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this is to have an understanding that chaos, when chaos is coming up on the way to you creating something that you've made a decision to create, something that you want, all chaos really is, from that perspective, is just old habits and old thoughts and old energies. That's all it is. It's just old stuff coming up to the surface. So when you, again, have an intention to do something, some sort of chaotic event may come up, probably will come up, almost has to come up if you really look at it from a place of self-awareness. Because what you'll start to see is that that chaos is something that you can get hypnotized in and then fall back into the old patterning of your old identity, or you can see it for what it really is and then make a decision to be who you prefer to be anyway. Now, is this just a story that I'm sort of making up in my mind, or is it just the actual truth of the situation? Well, really, whatever perspective you believe is the outcome that you're going to have, because ultimately speaking, there's two types of people that we have in the world ultimately. The first person, when a chaotic event unfolds, they become a victim. They think, why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be happening to me. It's something that I shouldn't be experiencing. Whereas the second person, they literally, what they'll see is an opportunity. They'll see an opportunity to create something better, to be better, to improve upon themselves in their life. And so really, when you can look at it like that, it stops becoming this sort of airy-fairy idea that just sounds nice but then isn't practical. It becomes actually real. It becomes to the point where your whole being and how you show up at a physical level as well is going to completely shift. And so what this is going to do is make it so that when you make these decisions to be who you want to be, it's actually easier to follow through, because you don't get so lost, so hypnotized, so identified. You don't get so entangled by just old stuff. Whereas now, when the chaos comes up, some chaotic situation, maybe it comes through a friend, manifests through a friend, maybe it manifests through a life situation. When it comes up, rather than getting entangled with it, you see an opportunity. And that's very powerful. Now you can actually be who you want to be at a much more free level. So the second thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to stay calm in the chaos when creating your goals and what you want is to have an understanding that something, quote unquote, will come up. It's like, stop having this expectation that nothing is going to come up and that everything is going to be perfect with bunnies and roses and everything's going to be beautiful on the way to creating what you want. Stop having that perspective. Understand that something has to come up, because it's going to be everything that you've been that's not aligned with who you choose to be now. Because trust me, there's a lot of things that are going to come up that have nothing to do with who you want to be. All the patterning of your past, maybe some past situation, maybe some memory, maybe a limiting belief of some kind. And all of this you have to sort of look at and see all of this not even as a bad thing, but again, as an opportunity. And that's tough to do sometimes, right? Sometimes the easiest, most comfortable thing to do can just to believe in it and to say, like, you know what, like, who cares? Let's just believe in this whole reality. But really, the claim that I'm making is that always in the end, from a long-term perspective, that's going to be the harder path. Although it might seem enticing, it might seem comfortable and, easy, it eventually becomes very hard. So I highly invite and encourage you to have this proper expectation that ultimately when you create a new decision to be something different, something will come up. It's not to be a pessimist. It's not to think that life is out to get you or that things always happen to you in a bad way. Actually, it's the opposite, because ultimately what it's actually showing you is how to not see life in a pessimistic way, because that's when we start to see life in a pessimistic way, is when we identify when we attach to the negative emotions of the past. We start to see life through this filter, through a limited filter of who you used to be. And that is an extremely limiting thing from a creative standpoint. When you see life through a filter, a limited tiny filter of only your past, you have to be more open-minded to see that this stuff is going to come up because that's who you've been. You've had this filter. So to remove this filter and then to change it into something else, that takes a lot of self-awareness. That takes a lot of intelligence. That takes a lot of wisdom that you want to connect to start to see that, you know what, I don't need to believe in the negativity of the past. And something probably is going to come up to make it seem like I have to. And when it does, I'm going to ignore it. That's the perspective that you have to almost have if you want to stay calm when all this stuff comes up to the surface, which when you see it as inevitable, it's much easier to do so. And so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to stay calm in the chaos when creating your goals is to have an understanding that calm, what calm actually is not what most people think. And really a lot of people won't want to tell you this, or they just won't have the understanding that staying calm is not necessarily, again, about staying calm in your body. It might look like that at first, and you might be thinking, well, then what is it? Like, what else is it going to be? But it might eventually manifest as that. But what I'm saying is that to really be calm is to be unreactive. So when you can feel yourself being reactive to something, and then you can stay unreactive to the reactivity itself, when you feel negativity, when you feel sadness, when you feel negative emotion, when you just kind of see it as it is and you don't react to it, that's what it means to stay calm. It means to not react and add on top of your negative emotions even more, to add more negativity on top of the negativity itself. That's what it means to stay calm, in my personal belief, because really we're all human beings, right? We're all going to feel negative emotions. We're all going to feel sadness. We're all going to feel guilt. We're all going to feel shame. We're all going to feel anger at some point. But the question is, are you going to feel guilty about feeling guilt? Are you going to be upset about the fact that you feel upset? Or are you going to be unreactive to your own emotions and let them pass by, just sort of like clouds in the sky? That's what I believe it really means to stay calm. And so when you do this, something beautiful happens where your life force, your creative life force, just sort of opens up, because you stop seeing life through just the filter of the past. You start to see it more as it really is. You start to see it as in a more clear way. And so you'll notice that when you do this, you feel more recharged, you feel more connected, you feel more powerful. And it's not a power that has anything to do with controlling the external world, but a power that comes from not even controlling your thoughts or your emotions, but a power that comes from mastering and controlling your attention. And when you can master your attention, when you can start to not give attention to negative emotions, just simply by choosing not to give your attention to it, just by not giving it power, not giving it energy, that's when you'll really understand that that's the one thing that you truly have mastery and control over at the end of the day. Because really, when a negative emotion comes up, you don't really have control over if that comes up to the surface. But what you have control over is where you decide to put your attention in that moment, and are you going to react to more to the initial reaction that already comes up. So it's almost like you're observing your reactions. And when you can observe your reactions and not get caught up in them, again, you'll notice that it's easier to stay calm. It's easier to create the things that you want and do it from a place of abundance rather than lack, where you feel like everything is lacking and you're a victim. You're going to start to see the natural abundance that just sort of exists in this present moment, inherently in each moment, that we just sort of can't see when we're limited by the filters of the past.